So we sought out a person first, and they said, hey, if we're willing to mentor you and coach you, here's how we did it. And I said, okay, cool. Hey, as long as we can check off legal, moral, and ethical.
Brendon, thanks for doing this with me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, my pleasure, my pleasure. So tell me what you do and what kind of space are you in?
Sure. So, I'm a recruiter by trade, but I know we're really here to talk about e-commerce. That's a big field, but to kind of narrow it down, my wife and I, we're network marketing professionals in the e-commerce space, helping companies do revenue online instead of through traditional retail sales. So, yeah.
So companies, not individuals, or are you considering individuals as companies now when they get into the e-commerce space?
That's a good question. I mean, I think a little bit of both. You know,
Okay.
I mean, I think we definitely help individuals and families, right, transition a lot of that in their own household, right? But I think we're definitely kind of people centered in what we do. So we're not approaching companies and trying to attract their business, right? We have partners that have those things set up already.
Yeah.
But yeah, at the end of the day, it's about the revenue. When it comes down to it. So yeah.
Well, so I was telling you before we got started with this that e-commerce has been a space that has been introduced to me particularly 10 years ago, right? And you see a lot of ads just hitting you and saying, hey, this is a space to be in. Amazon FBA being in particular the hottest things to be talked about around that time of that time. But I wonder if that's still the case, and what's the current state of e-commerce and how is it different from what it was through the boom of the Amazon FBA era?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, a lot of things have changed, and first off, I just want to say I know people, like I was telling you before, I know people that their business does what they do my monthly revenue in a day or in a few hours. And so certainly not, I know there's people who have bigger scale than me, but I think I can add some value with some of this stuff. And to your question about how has it changed? I think there was the excitement, when you're talking about Amazon FBA, fulfillment by Amazon, a lot of people wanted to drop ship. That was kind of the other buzzword. And I think a lot of people, it was exciting to them because you have this thing called e-commerce. I think before that you had like what I would call kind of the eBay phase, where it was just a platform for the transaction, but everything else was on you. And then you go into this drop shipping Amazon or FBA phase where people wanted to kind of offload the logistics of it, as many of the logistics as they could. And that was, so these big platforms, Amazon and a bunch of others really started, the industry grew to where there were subcategories now, and I think now we're in a phase where I think you have a lot of people who do well with retaining some of those aspects of the business and kind of having that under their wing. But I think a lot of people are moving to where there's so many platforms that handle a lot of it or most of it for you. Amazon's one of them. There's many others, but there's a lot of platforms that handle most, if not all of it for you. And I think we're now moving to where a lot of people want to be the influencer, you know what I mean? And if you think about it, influencers, the affiliate links and all these other things, affiliate marketing, all these things, that's a form of e-commerce, right? Where somebody else is handling the transactions and the product itself is not even yours, but you're the one capturing the attention, right? And making that transaction happen.
Well, that's a very interesting piece because I did see influencers that have followers pursue that space of having their links at the bottom of the description or the bottom of their posts, right? But I didn't really see that as being a productive business model from their end, and therefore now they're entering into a completely unique space. And one of the things that you need to really have in this arena, from my experience, from my understanding, is that you need to capture attention, right? People need to be okay to purchase your product, but your product need to be something that they need, at least to some extent. How do you see that dynamic with this new introduction of influencers infiltrating the space, but also with product management and all that?
I think that it presents some interesting dynamics. I guess that's a good way to put it, as the word you use. For example, there's a lot of people who are getting really good at video and producing their own content. Which I think is wise. that of tomorrow will be all AI, which is crazy. I'm sure we could talk about that.
Yeah.
But I think like one of the guys I follow, he's in e-commerce, but a completely different industry than me. He was super excited about like certain gun holsters and pistols and firearms and things like that, accessories. And he couldn't find the ones he wanted, so we made them. And he had a somewhat decent YouTube following about his truck, right? Completely different industry.
Right.
Firearms, trucks, I guess there's some crossover. But so then one day he was like, hey guys, I'm excited about this thing that I made. Check it out. He wasn't trying to sell it. Now that holster business does like $500,000 in revenue for him.
That's impressive.
Yeah. And so my point in saying that is like, I'm not sure he was really trying to be an influencer as we know it today, but he created a following of people that if they're following this person, they have some things in common probably that attract them to this person. And so that if they have things in common, you can market to those things, you know? So I think that's one interesting dynamic that it brings up is as you build a following, they probably have a set of, commonalities and beliefs and values that make them marketable in one way or another, so.
Yeah, I guess that's the whole influencer culture at this state, just you encapsulated it, right? Being able to raise some sort of attention on a consistent basis and therefore selling a product. But I do see the phase or the next iteration of that being maybe just like how that guy did, an actual particular product that you manufacture yourself. Therefore, you have 100% of the sales. You're not really dividing the revenue, for example, with an e-commerce company that is trying to sell a particular product and you're just getting a check and you're trying to really push that on your followers. It might be a better approach. However, just going back to the e-commerce topic, so define it for me so that I can really understand it. If I'm really going into the space, like what is e-commerce?
Yeah, I mean, I think, and it sounds broad because it really is. Anytime you're helping transactions take place or facilitating a transaction of a product or service online, then I think that qualifies as e-commerce, and that's notoriously broad, and there's so many ways you can do that. I mean, I guess to further answer your question, though, I'll speak about it from my perspective as a network marketing professional, where essentially what we're looking to accomplish is actually here I'll do this, like I'll do an exercise with you, okay? How many? I got my calculator out. How many people do you think are in your cell phone right now? Contacts. Rough guess.
I don't know. 500.
500. Okay.
That's a lot. Maybe let's cut it down to 300.
Okay, sure. 300, it's fine. Okay, so I checked this out. I found these stats from the Bureau of Labor stats. These are stats for 2022. I kind of label this consumables, monthly expenses for people. That's food, personal care, and miscellaneous. Okay, that total per household was $934. Okay, so that's again Bureau of Labor stats for 2022. So you said 300 people roughly in your contacts. And if they're averaging, what did I say, 934?
Yeah.
I'll just say, $934 for easy math, if I can type here.
Wow.
That's $280,000 of revenue that's moving through your contact list, essentially, every single month. So my question is, how much of that do you want to come through your household? And think about all the myriad ways that you can maybe capture some of that revenue. A lot of it's going to be through online, right? So that I would say that's e-commerce. As far as what my wife and I do, that's really what we spend our time doing is, how can I capture the revenue of the people that are in my network, right? And then I can, our mentors showed us how, and a lot of times we still lean on them for this. We show other people how to do the same thing. That's how we scale, right? So instead of having employees or having instead of having employees who accomplish a certain task for us, we partner with other people in business, very similar to, but not the same thing as a franchise, right? And that's how we scale and grow. So we're capturing revenue in our network, and we're helping other people do the same thing to scale and grow. That's our e-commerce. Yeah. So
I understand now.
Okay.
So it is very different from selling a trendy product that can just disappear in a matter of months and weeks. This is more of a reoccurring household necessities,
exactly,
that are being purchased and going out of people's pockets anyways, as it is.
Exactly.
You're just trying to find a better way to propose it and sell it to your contacts, like you said. That's a lot of money right there.
Yeah.
When you really quantify it and put it in dollar figures, it was pretty
it can be staggering, you know. I mean, and you think about that. That's just your personal contact. How many businesses do you know? You know, one of our customers was his business is significantly reduced now, but we used to live in an apartment complex. They owned about 30 buildings, probably more, here in Kansas City, and got to know the guy in the cleaning crew. Come to find out, he wasn't on the cleaning crew; he owned the cleaning company. And so he began buying different things from us, his glass cleaner, right, his surface cleaner, his bathroom wipes, things like that, to where he had an expansive list of products that he bought for his business. And that was really, you know, and so you talk about your personal contacts. What about business contacts?
Business contacts.
Yeah.
And
so,
really social media
exactly.
connections, right? I mean,
exactly.
You can really broaden it and really reach a lot of people. So how do you, what is your value proposition? How is one person buying from you in comparison to buying it from Amazon?
Sure. Yeah. Good question. I mean, I think initially what we're talking about is, hey, you know, honestly, aunt, uncle, coach, teacher, friend, coworker, anything along those lines. You know, I started this business because I'm trying to accomplish X, Y, and Z in my life. Really think this is a way for me to do it. When I thought of people who might support me, I thought about you. You know. First of all, it's kind of a little cheap tug at the heart, you know what I mean? But I think you have initially, when you're trying to accomplish something, you have to be the separator, and you have you're the service and the value that you bring to that person as a relationship. I think that's where it starts in a lot of cases. But then, as you're continuing to develop, you develop success stories, you develop testimonies, you develop. This is if you have quality products. If you're choosing some fly-by-night product, I can't help you, you know, and I don't think anybody really can. But if you have some quality products, then you, exactly like you mentioned earlier, you start to develop a testimonial, a success story. Man, I would have never used that product, but my aunt or my uncle or my neighbor, their life was actually dramatically improved by this product, this supplement, this skincare, this cleaning product, right? Something as simple as that. You then carry that with you to your next your next conversation. And in that way, I think that's your value proposition, you know. They say facts sell, but stories, no. Facts tell, but stories sell. You know.
That's very true. If you can have a personal connection with someone really that has benefited from it, that's how word of mouth businesses grow, right? And I've seen a lot of businesses that have really scaled just simply from word of mouth. So how is consumer behavior, how do you think that affects your business as a whole? When I say consumer behavior, it's, you know, depending on the economy, right? I mean, are we going through a recession? That's a question being thrown around right now. Some people are certain that we are going through a recession. Inflation is something that I can attest to personally, right?
Yeah, major.
Yeah, people are going to be conservative when we are faced with these kind of incidents that are out of our control.
Yep.
And they will be apprehensive to purchase that product. How do you combat that, if at all? I'll let you take it from there.
No, I think it's a great question. It's super relevant, you know. I think, first of all, again, if your value proposition is yourself, and at least, again, initially, right? And again, this is just from our perspective. There may be instances where this is not relevant. But from our perspective, I think you're adding value with yourself, with your service, right? With you who you are as a person to that person. And I think, again, same thing with the product of the value of your products itself. The quality really is the word I'm looking for of your products. And then I think also being diversified, that's a big thing in the space, diversifying your customer base, not only in number of paying clients, customers, but also in what they're purchasing. Right. So, for example, I have one of my very first customers. Her name is Anne. She's not my grandma, but I call her grandma. She's my next door neighbor growing up. Is his grandma. She's like the stereotypical grandma that you think of, right? Very motherly. She used to buy like cosmetics and makeups and stuff from me, and then she also occasionally will purchase like some joint supplements and things like that. Less and less she buys the cosmetics, but she does not forget those joint supplements because the value that they bring, and they actually help her quite a bit. And I can attest to that across, you know, our whole network of business owners, is that a lot of times it's the things that provide the most value for people. They may skimp or change a little bit, but they'll stick with the things that they have come to need, and the needs that you're actually filling in their life. On the flip side of things, though, now as we scale and grow on the partnership side, a lot of people are having that conversation, like you said, where I can't believe, I got 3 bags of groceries and it was $100. Man, this used to be, what am I, at the end of the month, they start feeling that. People are really looking for ways to create additional income right now, and not just an extra 50 or $100. People are really looking for ways to create other dependable, reliable, scalable streams of income into their household. And in that instance, I'm not going to say I love inflation. I don't like it when people are hurting or when things cost more for people. But I can kind of roll with the punches on that, because I know that as we scale, right, we have a network marketing model. As we scale and grow with other business partners, a lot of them are kind of driven to us by the challenges there. So on the customer side of things, adding the value, I think, and having those products that they've come to need in their life, and then your service as well. But as we scale and grow, a lot of people have said, "Man, I have to do something extra right now. I can't do another year with just my salary because it's just not enough." And so, in that sense, we're kind of positioned well, I think, for both. So
let's talk about technology and what it has, how it is affecting the space of e-commerce, right? We touched on AI. Maybe we can start from there. But I do want to talk about how technology is helping, or if not taken away from the industry right now.
Yeah, I think across multiple industries, AI is certainly top of mind for a lot of people, and same with us. I think about. I've used it a little bit for I would say some pretty basic productivity tasks there. I may not be exactly on the cutting edge of or early adopter phase, if you will, of that stuff. I think there is, first of all, it's a great time in history, e-commerce or otherwise, to start something, because there is so much technology. There's all these platforms, kind of the side hustle generation, if you will. I'm not sure that's a phrase, but there's a lot of technical infrastructure, I'll say, that's out there for people who want to start something. Almost to the point where you don't know where to start. Right? But that being said, I think exactly like you said, we talked about coming from an eBay generation to drop shipping and Amazon FBA, and now to where you look at things like TikTok Shop, and I think that's kind of one of the up and coming contenders for Amazon, and people talk about Temu, people talk about Shopify. I'm not affiliated with any of these things, but or Etsy. I think it's enabled a lot of people. I think it's a great thing. It's really enabled a lot of people to get started with something. Take this podcast, for example. You know what I mean? It's like a few pieces of equipment, you know what I mean? And you got the platforms to really get a message out there that today is hopefully adding some value. But I think where it's going technology-wise, I think a lot of people are going to be using it to create a brand. I watched just yesterday, guy online, he put together a 90, I think it was a 60-second clip of different AI videos, and I could not tell. I knew that it was AI because of his post, but I'm looking at it, I'm like, this is mind-blowing, the accuracy of this. So now moving forward, even further barrier to entry about marketing or branding, putting your brand out there, creating a catalog of content that is amplified by artificial intelligence. I think you can put some really quality content out there. So I think it's just going to be amplified, especially when it comes to the advertising, marketing, and getting your brand out there in space. So.
Oh, I love it. And even also in the product designing phase, in the future, that can really hit a spot right there where you have a better iteration of what you're doing right now, not necessarily with the supplement, but a day-to-day, a cleaning product, like you said, right?
Yeah,
and
sure.
They could be better designed. It could be better packaging, cheaper packaging. That could come from AI for sure. Do you utilize or see the importance of data analysis and the space that you're in e-commerce?
Yeah, sure, for sure. I think it's important to keep an eye on trends. It's important to understand, especially if you're heavy on a transaction, kind of a more traditional, if you will, e-commerce. I think you have to look at that. You got to look at things like how much does it cost for any business? What's the cost to acquire a customer, right? What's the lifetime value of that customer? What's the lifetime value if they purchase 2 products versus 1 versus 5? I think it's really important to stay on top of that stuff. But again, I think going back, if the quality of what you're putting out there, quality of the product itself is good, you know what I mean? I think that overcomes a lot of challenges,
Yeah.
But for sure, data is going to be very important.
Is important. Just jumping space into the operational side of things. Like you said, these drop shipping platforms would allow you to remove yourself technically from the day-to-day rut of actually having a product in a warehouse and labeling it and packaging it and sending it out there. Do you think that's an effective way of running an e-commerce business today, or is it just like a cheaper way of doing it? One of the subjects that I really initiated me to do this podcast was because I do speak to small businesses on a day-to-day basis, right? And sometimes you get hit by ads that tell you that before the end of this month, I can guarantee you can make 100,000 or 200,000, 500,000, right?
Yeah.
But it actually resonates with people because just like you said, they do want to make a little extra side income, right? But the fact of the matter is, businesses is very difficult to operate and run.
100%.
I guess I'm kind of getting away from my original question, but
I'm following you.
Where do you see that, operational logistics side coming into play, or maybe, tell me the difference between running your business, e-commerce business by yourself and using these bigger platforms that are already established and getting your product out there?
Yeah, I mean, I think we use a couple platforms. We don't use Amazon, but we use a few different platforms, as I've mentioned, that are like that, where many of the logistics are out of the way. I think that it's kind of like a double-edged sword, based on mindset. Here's what I mean by that. The barrier to entry is very, very low. That means that as you're launching, you don't necessarily have to have a lot of skin in the game. But guess what? You don't have a lot of skin in the game. You know what I mean? And I think you can start it on a hobby budget, a shoestring hobby side hustle budget. But if you treat it like a little side hustle hobby, it's going to stay that way. I think you have to come in understanding that, I didn't pay for some huge website to be built. Maybe I didn't pay for a bunch of advertising. Maybe you did pay for a bunch of advertising. I think the guy who takes out a credit card and for $10,000 and then goes right into, spends all of that on advertising in your first 6 months, you know what I mean? That guy or gal is pretty invested because they know they got to pay that sucker back. If you had some platforms that just, there's free ones out there. Maybe it's just a couple $100 or something to host a domain or something. It can be a double-edged sword because there's not very much skin in the game. So I think you have to bring, if you wanted to pay you, like a professional, you got to treat it like a professional. If you wanted to, you can't be a millionaire on a minute, like they talk about on a minimum wage work ethic. Right. I think it's just whatever the results are of whatever platform you use is going to reflect your mentality.
I see.
So, yeah.
So in the same e-commerce space, let's say if I was to design a product, anything that it is very unique to me, do you think selling it on those platforms might be better just to get started until you're built, or doing the whole, you're going to have to do the logistics anyways if it's really a unique product for yourself? I don't know if I answered my question there, but for a person that has a product that they want to sell that is very unique and new to them, what would be the first couple of steps that they need to do to approach it?
Yeah, I think for sure, if you have something that you made, a product that's unique but you think has value, for sure. I think in my opinion, you're getting that in the hands of people who are already centers of influence, like we said. Yeah. Whether you're selling it to them or not, getting some of those testimonials, getting some of those stories where it affected this person, and you can then arm yourself to really go to the masses with that. I think if it's going to be a physical product, I would look at having some type of support. Whether that's Amazon, whether that's eBay. And you maybe try some things. I think eBay is kind of the easiest and the simplest, because, and again, I'm not sponsored by eBay or anything. I don't use them, but I think it's really just the transaction, and you can, if it's valuable to you, and you can see, okay, this person liked this person. There's probably hundreds, thousands, or millions of other people who would value it, And so I think making it available to those people is the start. I'm not trying to sound vague or avoid the question, but I really think any way you go about it, I think that the phase after that is going to be getting the word out there, right?
Scalability.
Scalability, exactly. Yeah. So, yeah.
No, I understand completely. Do you think customer experience comes into play when it comes to e-commerce? If you're completely removed from the actual product that you're selling, and and to the end consumer. But I guess in your space it's different because now you're selling it to your contact. Right?
Mm-hmm.
How is customer experience calculated into all this?
Yeah, I think it is a massive separator. We were just talking about lifetime value of a client. If I have a client from my entire life, that's a different take on that word, right? Most of the time they mean, okay, usually people buy 4 to 10 times from me or something like that. Just throw out an example. So okay, average if that's how much that's what the quantity that they're purchasing. What does that value equal out to? But if you create experiences for your customers that are unique, then you truly do have a lifetime customer, right? If you continue to provide even some basic maintenance in that relationship. So I think it's really important. I think it's a major separator. And people who have more traditional e-commerce businesses, it's like you have to hire customer service, you know what I mean? And then there's levels in that game too. Customer service that's overseas, it might be cheap for you and you're profitable, but do they speak English really well? Can they actually handle this? Do they sound like they care? And then so I think there's levels to that game as well. But the customer, your customer service and customer experience, I think is going to be a big separator for sure. So yeah,
love it. So you said that you have a mentor in this space, and I think that's very important in any space to have some sort of a mentor that I've done it in the past that allow you to walk through the right steps, to take the right steps. Do you see the benefit of working together in the e-commerce space being valuable instead of competing from a mile apart?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's, and I can actually talk about a couple of different things based off that question that I think would be good for people to hear. So yeah, I mean, I think scaling with working with business partners for me, I mean, I just think that's simpler. I just think I think it's your business it becomes about people versus about transactions, and that's always, in my opinion, that's for me, that fits my mindset and my heart and my values. That fits me better. There's other ways where if that's not you, then great, go do other stuff, But you mentioned my mentor, and so I can talk a little bit about this. I mean, that's one thing I was going to say is how I got into it anyway was because of our mentors. I wasn't looking for e-commerce, I mean, I knew what it was, but I think I've been married coming on 5 years now. When we were right before we were getting married, we're like, how do we create more freedom of time and money? Just like a lot of people, like, we don't want to work for somebody else forever. We'd like to have some more choice and some more control, like I said, of time and money in our lives here. How do we really pull that off? And so we just looked for a person who had that. We looked for people really, and who had what we talked about, and okay, they have a good marriage, their health is good, their stress is relatively low, right? They have options, but they also have impact, they have influence, and they have significant finances as part of that. Who has all that stuff and is willing to coach us, willing to mentor us, willing to help us along, and willing to just be a primary voice in our life that we can trust. I think a lot of people are looking for that. We looked for that first. We found some people, come to find out they were essentially knocking on the door of financial independence. They were just a few steps ahead of us for sure, but not so far ahead that they were unrelatable. Now they're, the folks that we work with are certainly, travel frequently. I mean, it's like they no one controls their time. So we sought out a person first, and they said, hey, if we're willing to mentor you and coach you, here's how we did it. And I said, okay, cool. Hey, as long as we can check off legal, moral, and ethical, all good. You know what I mean? Like, and that's how we ended up in the space in the first place. But one of the things you mentioned was getting into it. I'll talk about this here.
Yeah.
You mentioned getting into e-commerce in the first place, and I think a lot of people are probably asking, whether it's e-commerce or otherwise, how do I get started in something? I mean, I really think there's 3 things you start with. The first is how do you ask yourself, how do you want to live? Define what kind of lifestyle you want to have, and really put some thought into that. Like I just mentioned, your finances, sure, but also stress, time. Am I going to be forever spending time away from my family and kids so this income can continue to come in? I think you put some impact, the impact that you're making on other people, control of your time, like I said, control of your money. I think a lot of those things come into play. Have some definition when it comes to that. I think that'll kind of narrow down. The second thing is going to be find a mentor who has those things, regardless of industry first. Find somebody who has those things and is also willing to coach you, because you can save many, many years of heartache and challenges finding out somebody who's done well and also messed up a bunch of times, so you don't have to do that. Third thing I think is then going to be, especially if you found e-commerce to be something that you want to pursue after those first two, is then I would only then worry about platform and products. That's really not to say it's the least important thing, but it's certainly not the most important thing. I think there's a lot of different platforms, a lot of different products, but as long as they line up with how you want to live, and you've run those by a mentor or a coach, I think you'll find the right one. So
yeah, I agree. Values are important, right? Something that you can connect with, or even have as a foundation to be able to say this is something that I look up to on a person. Therefore, if it leads to that business model, which kind of led to e-commerce in your space. All right, I love it. Scalability. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yep.
Tell me the quickest way to get to $100,000 in a month.
In a month?
No, I'm just kidding. When I said that, because that's what it is. Like I said, the reasons why people are drawn into these kind of contents, because they see that maybe there is a way in the e-commerce space to get to 100K in a month or two, right? But what does that mean? 100K? Is it sales? Is it profits?
Yeah,
it's not really dissected, right? So it's not really broken down. And how much are you really pumping out there as far as the what do you call it? The marketing is concerned, right? And maybe that's something we need to touch on. Marketing. What is the effective marketing strategy that you have found?
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, marketing is an area, when you look at traditional marketing, ads and things like that, we've really not messed with a lot of that because we're going network to network, if you will. But I do know for a fact, that's going to be a space. I mean, exposure. You're talking about getting the word out there, and there's myriad ways to advertise, myriad ways to market, especially as we talked about with AI. So where you can production costs, I feel like, are probably lower than ever because of technology, which is great. But yeah, I mean, I think also you can get really creative with that, especially now when we talk about influencer marketing. If you know some centers of influence, you can kind of use that and help each other out in that way. I think that's a great way to start if you're really going bootstrap with it. But yeah, I mean, I think I don't want to speak too much on advertising because that's just not really something we've done. So I feel like I'd really be speaking out of turn there.
I understand.
But I was going to say, as far as and maybe this will lead back to scalability. So I'll just say this bit, and then if we need to edit it or re-ask the question, when it comes to marketing yourself, especially for us as we are vetting partners and we're looking for partners, that's a whole conversation, I think, in and of itself. But having a brand out there, people are going to look you up on social media. You say, hey, this is the business that I'm in. Somebody really helped me with this. It's accomplished X, Y, and Z results in our life, and it's really been something great. Oh, I'd love to do that. Well, here, let's slow down and have a conversation. Let's see if this will work for your values, this sort of thing. Second you leave that conversation, they're looking you up on social. So I think, in a way, that's kind of advertising. That's marketing, is making sure that your brand and whatever you're putting out there aligns with what you're talking about. So yeah,
that's actually a very good point. People do look you up.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
LinkedIn, social media, they will definitely look you up to try to see who is this person really? What are they projecting besides what they're saying? That's a very interesting piece. Anything else that you would like to put out there as it relates to this e-commerce space?
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned scaling. I think there's a lot of different ways you can scale, for sure. In a traditional business sense, scaling with employees is it's all about duplication, right? You're duplicating your efforts with another person who can hopefully do that task or those tasks 80% as good as you can or better, right? That's what I've always heard. If they can do it 80% or better, then let it rock and roll, But I think one of our mentors showed us how to scale with other business owners in a professional way. There is a very unprofessional way to do this, and you would consider that more traditional salesy network marketing, where somebody's hitting you up, hey, sign up in this thing and you can make $100,000 a month too, like you were just talking about. Yeah. Very pushy, very salesy, very transactional. And that's because the value ends once the transaction is done, right? But what our mentors showed us when it came to scaling was if you can build a business together and ongoing success creates ongoing profit for each other, then now they're saying, okay, we need to find business partners, or if we're going to scale, but we need to find the right business partners. We need to, somebody's going to see us and want to do what we do. Hey, what's your value system? How are you when it comes to patience? This is my mentors to me when I first approached them. They were going to scale with me, but they had to vet me. How are you when it comes to patience? Do you understand? How are you when it comes to constructive criticism? Or do you tend to be accountable? I noticed you were 5 minutes late. Is that something that I can expect from you moving forward, or do you think that you can overcome something like that? And in that way, they're vetting, and they're very particular about who they partner with, because they know the value is after someone starts a business, or after that transaction, so to speak. Because after then, it's years of effort, time, energy, money poured into that new business partner, hoping that they are successful, and they're going to make darn sure that that's the right person. So when it comes to scaling, I think, picking, growing, if you're going to grow with business partners, really make sure that that's a quality business partner that you align with, that you like, you enjoy spending time around maybe, and you can get along with. That's kind of underrated, I feel like. And that way you can both have long-term success. And it's also much more professional, and that way you don't become that guy on your social who's always hitting in people's DMs, hitting them up. You're not that guy at Thanksgiving dinner, like, oh, Brendon's going to come. I know he's going to talk to me about try to sign up his business. No, don't do that. Unless you want to do that. But I feel like your relationships are going to dissolve pretty quickly after that. So that's what I'd say as far as scaling.
Yeah, trust, build trust, and maintain that trust and scale that way with partners. Do you think partners, the subject kind of expands from your mentor in that space, or because when you say partners, people that I'm thinking about are people that are going to supply your product.
Okay.
That partnership, how does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of different partnerships that we or us. Really, there's a few. Some of those are suppliers of an actual product itself. Some of those are, I would say, infrastructure when it comes to logistics and shipping and things like that. I would say as well, some of those are some infrastructure when it comes to training and education and duplicating conferences and events and things like that, and media. I think that's one area where I guess using the word partners is kind of dangerous because it could mean a few different things. But partners in that way, as far as those business partners, that thankfully my mentors already had a lot of that set up.
Nice.
You can find a lot of that stuff, especially when it comes to if you are looking at network marketing, there's usually a lot of that is set up, which is great, But again, you're finding the person, right, in the lifestyle before you're looking at that stuff. But both are important. So, but when I was talking about like scaling with other people, I was really talking about other people who also want to create those results, and they also want to own a business and run it and create profit. And then, if you have some sort of agreement or some sort of, business agreement there, or a business relationship, I'll say, then you kind of revenue share, and their business becomes kind of an extension of your business. The great profit, not taking any money out of their pocket, but there is some revenue sharing that can take place there. So hopefully I clarified that.
No, very clear.
Okay,
very clear, because I was confusing those two.
Okay, cool.
Partners, right?
Good. I'm glad we clarified.
I'm glad I asked. I'm glad I clarified. No, we were talking about authenticity.
Yeah.
Right. I do think that authenticity is something that might not necessarily yield profits right now, but in the long run, you can develop some sort of a connection with whoever your audience is in any space, and you can build upon that authenticity. I think that's something that we're lacking right now in our culture. When I say in our culture in general, in America, how do you see that? Tell me a little bit more about what your perspective is when it comes to authenticity and how it relates to your business.
Yeah, I mean, exactly like you said. I think if people think we're lacking authenticity now, it's going to be a very short period of time where it's going to be very difficult to believe what you see, because you can't tell if it's real or not, what you hear, because all of this technology. And so I think people who they seek to make genuine and authentic connections and genuine authentic relationships now, those are going to be the people who win in the long run. Because they'll have the deeper connection. If you can really look in somebody's eyes, and feel like they care for you. First of all, I do think people can feel that. I do think that's measurable today. But in the long run, I think in-person events and in-person conversations are people are going to seek out those environments because it's not through a screen as much as we love technology and it gets our message out there. But I think these in-person events, in-person conversations, where there's no digital filter will become much more important because people want to know what's real. People want to, they want to be in business with somebody who is confident and they know they can look them in the eye and say, I know I can help you, and I can help you because of your family, not necessarily because of the dollar that's going to come back to me, but because of the $100 that your family now has access to because of this and the change that it makes in your family. So yeah, I think authenticity is a long-term winning play.
I totally agree.
Yeah,
totally agree. Brendon, how can people reach you?
Yeah, sure. I mean, really, the best place for me is LinkedIn. So I talk about there just personal growth. I talk about building business. I talk about family stuff. That's if you really want to find me and communicate with me, I'm most active on LinkedIn. Brendon Butler.
Brendon Butler.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, man.
Absolutely, man. It's been a blessing.
Appreciate it.
So appreciate your time.